Welcome to another Green Live. We are in the episode number 8. Believe it or not, this is something that we are running every week, a sustainability talk that's adding value to so many people out there. And as usual, I have here with me my guests, Carlos Diaz, Stamatia, and Adriana. Hello, how are you, everybody?
We are great.
Hello.
Hello.
Wonderful. Well, the theme of the day is sustainable finance, and we'll have a great deep dive on several legislations and how the financial services and you that are in the finance department can handle sustainability. And speaking of which, I think a good way, guys, to start with is to show everybody a very good thing, which is the SAP integrated report that just came out. I've been going through the report, which I recommend everybody that is watching us to go through and see how SAP is really committed to the stakeholders. But there's one thing here in the report that I'm walking through right now that I would like to highlight and get comments from all of you is a big commitment that came from our board and CEO. So basically, the commitment is turning to our responsibility to the environment. We have pulled forward our goal to become carbon neutral from 2025 to 2023. This is a big commitment, everybody. So I would like to hear from you. What do you think about that? Why SAP would make that commitment and upfront become carbon neutral?
I think this is great news. We have to be proud. Our objective was going to be neutral in 2025, and we are taking some learnings now from this COVID situation to bring it closer to us to 2023. For example, we have learned that there are lots of services that we can do remotely. There are many things that we have accelerated in a digital fashion that they're gonna be here to stay. Okay, so of course our strategy is always to avoid carbon emissions first, if not to reduce them, and finally to offset them. But I think these 2 years that we got are essential. This is exactly what all companies are striving for. This is what our planet needs. And last but not least, we don't have to stop at being carbon neutral. We have to be carbon negative. And I'm sure as soon as we get to the point where we are neutral, we have to start looking back, see at the footprint that we have generated since we were born as a company, in our case, more than 40 years now, and start digging into that to be really carbon negative. We cannot hear you, Pedro.
Yeah, from the audience, we are also getting some congratulations. Ramil is saying congrats, great news. Yeah, we are very excited, right, Adriana and Stamatia?
Yes, really excited to find the news actually, because the European Commission is talking about targets like 2030, 2050 for the European continent to become carbon neutral, and to see that we're just 2 years away for that at SAP, it's really demonstrating that it's possible, first of all.
Wonderful.
And of course, more companies should follow the same example as SAP. It will help the environment.
Yeah, well, of course, we can discuss more about that. I think some industries are, let's say, they have more advantages, it's easier, and some industries, for some other industries, it's more difficult. But of course, everybody has a journey in front of them.
Yeah, we have been doing this, not just because of course, SAP's efforts, but also our suppliers, our partners. And this is essential to understand. This is part of the story of Scope 3. We can do this because we have an ecosystem that also values this. Just to give you an example, our cloud solutions it's a green cloud. So it's powered by renewable sources. So that's only possible when we own the data centers. Okay, we own our destiny, but sometimes we don't own some data centers. So it is because we work with responsible suppliers that we can do this.
Well, and I think that if anybody here wants to get more information about the commitments from SAP and how sustainability is running at the global level at SAP, I have great news as well. There is a sustainability summit coming in April. And we would like to invite all of you to register for that. We'll leave the link in the comments below. But I have a video for you just to have a bit of the feeling of what's going to happen. Check this out.
Great, nice information, nice video. So let's talk about now what is sustainable finance and how the financial services has affected from the climate change. So in 2019, the Bank of England mentioned about the catastrophic impact the climate has on the banks. And unless the firms takes action, 1 month later, the BlackRock, the biggest investor of companies, attended the Climate Action 100 Plus. The Climate Action 100 Plus is an investors' initiatives, and the main focus is to ensure that the biggest emitters of greenhouse gases are taking action for the environment, and they also are disclosing the risks and opportunities into the market. So the financial sector are realizing the risks that come from the climate change and also the opportunities that come from the climate action. But what are those risks for the banking and for the insurance companies? In 1980s, from the 1980s, the severe climate, the severe weather events like storms, droughts, and all these are more than tripled. This has some impact to the health of the people, but also to the infrastructure and to the private property. So if those events will keep going and more frequently, then the consumers will be more reliable to the insurers so as to pay the cost for the damage of the cars or for the house. On the other side, the insurance, because they will have to pay more, they will increase the premiums. Now, if the consumers are does not have an insurance company, then will have to pay all the costs by their own. So in both cases, the consumers are paying more. In the area of the banks, now the climate change is causing a lot of cost in the return of investments. And let's see some examples. From a dry weather, we will have a poor core yield, and that will lead to the farmers not to pay the loans. Also, another example is we can see to the stricter regulations that the plastic for the plastics, and this is cause the plastic producers not to be to losing their business and not to be able to pay the loans. So there are a lot of examples out there that create an insecure for the future, and this will lead to a low investment.
Wow, great implications, Tamatia. Thank you for sharing this. Is the EU taking any action in that direction?
Yes, of course. The European Union in 2019 released the European Union Green Deal. This is the new growth strategy of Europe, and it is actually an action plan. It is focuses on 6 dimensions: environmental friendly technology, support industry innovation, clean, cheap, and public and private transportation, clean energy, building efficiency, and support partnerships for the environment. This plan outlines the investments that needs to be done and also the financial tools that are needed. So as to shift the political commitment into a legal obligation, the European Union created the European Union Climate Law. And inside, a part of the European Union Green Deal is also the European Union Investment Plan. This is a plan that mobilizes €1 trillion. As you can see, it's a lot of investments here into the next decades. And it is investments that has to do for the green economy, green investments, let's say, that has to do with the environment. In addition to that, so as to trigger more investments, they have created the European Union Fund for Strategic Investments. So as we can see, a lot of investments out there, and all these investments will go through the bonds.
Wow, great, Stamatia. But one question: how can we know what is sustainable or not? I mean, I'm also talking to my financial advisor, and I want to invest some money in green activities, in green opportunities. But how can we really know that these are really sustainable?
Yes, this is a good question, Adriana. There is a confusion in the market of what is sustainable. We can see a lot of standards out there, GRI, SARS, and many other standards that the companies are following. But actually, because they are different, we cannot compare the companies. So in 2018, a group of experts, a technical experts group, TEG, came together and they created a standard classification system. They called it EU Taxonomy. In 2020, they released that report. And what is an EU Taxonomy? Before I go into what is it, let's mention that from 2020 and afterwards, the Platform for Sustainable Finance, another group of experts, they have the tasks to develop those activities and also to put them in practice and help the companies and the investors to implement them. So what is the EU taxonomy? It is a common language, a classification system. It gives a definition of what is sustainable. And also it is a list of activities. It is focusing on circular economy, on mitigate climate change, on pollution, on water, on protection of the ecosystem. So it has some main objectives there. And it gives a security to the investors about their investment. And also it helps the companies to plan their activities so as to be sustainable. It's good to mention that there is also an IT tool that it will be going to release. They mentioned early 2021, where anyone can navigate through the taxonomy. Another thing I wanted to mention is about the European Green Bond Standards. This group of experts, the TEG experts, they came together and created the standards for the green bond. What is a green bond? It's a kind of a loan, let's say, but you do not take it from the bank. You take it from an institution, from an organization, from a company. And it should be issued for a green it should be for a green project, and this is the main thing. So the European Union is giving some recommendations of what exactly is a green bond, what can be we can say it is a green bond, and it gives also the steps that one can follow so as to issue a green bond. This is very important. And the last thing is about the climate benchmarks and disclosures. And I think that, Adriana, you have some more things to share here and also give us some more examples from specific companies.
Yes, thank you, Stamatia, very much for this introduction. Really useful and interesting, by the way. There is a lot coming, and this group that Stamatia talked about, this technical expert group, TEG, how we call it, has been working on recommendations for the European Commission on the definition of minimum standards for the methodology of the climate transition. And therefore, they have been working on benchmarks, but also on the disclosures. But let's see a little bit more. Can you please share, Pedro, the first slide? Thank you very much. So the EU taxonomy also translates into 6 environmental objectives, yeah, and financial markets, but also companies will need to report and disclose the information on these 6 environmental objectives, which are climate change mitigation, climate change adaptation, sustainable and protection of water and marine resources, transition to a circular economy, pollution prevention and control, and last but not least, protection and restoration of biodiversity and ecosystem. So this is, by the way, I'm taking this information from this final report from the technical experts group, which I highly recommend to all of you to read, because it's really interesting and it's really translating this into how financial markets and companies can work with the EU taxonomy, follow the regulations, report and disclose financial and non-financial information. So going back to the objectives, the taxonomy also sets performance thresholds. Yeah, this is referred to as technical screening criteria for economic activities, which can be substantially contribute to at least one of the 6 environmental objectives as defined in the regulation. Another one is a very important one is do not significant harm to any of the other 5 environmental objectives as defined in the proposed regulation. So substantially contribute, but also do not harm the other ones. So while we do good, let's be careful of not do harm on the other ones. And also comply with minimum safeguards. But let's see if we move to the next slide. Please, Pedro, can you please help? Okay, what? Thank you. Who has to do what and by when, which is very important for companies in general. So the taxonomy sets out 3 groups of users. The first one is the financial market participants, which are offering financial products. The second one is the large companies who are already required to provide non-financial reporting. And the third one is the EU and member states. Yeah, we will concentrate on the first 2 in our next discussion. So let's see the financial markets and the large companies. What do they need to do? First of all, let's look a little bit of deadlines. We all have deadlines, and these are very important to follow. So we have seen that at the end of the last year, we had already the technical screening criteria for climate change mitigation and climate change adaptation. So these are basically the first 2 economic objectives of the EU taxonomy. And by 1st of June this year, we will also have the specifics of the disclosure obligations for financial and non-financial companies. But more important than that, by end of this year, the financial markets will need to disclose already activities related to climate change mitigation and adaptation in their financial products. Meanwhile, the companies will have to do that, this non-financial reporting actually, during the next year, 2022. So this comes also with a challenge. This means that on one side, financial markets need to bring transparency into their financial products and explain how sustainable they are, what are the environmental objectives that they are reaching, and what is the percentage of that portfolio which is aligned with the taxonomy. And as you imagine, they would take this information from companies, yeah? But companies on the other side will need to report on that in 2022. So, well, the European Commission understand that this would bring some challenges for the financial markets, especially at the beginning. But this is a process. Yeah? It's a journey that we start. We have seen that we will start first with climate change mitigation and adaptation. And the Commission also gives a lot of recommendations, yeah, to this technical experts group. Like, for example, start with the 6 objectives and measure each one of them individually. Then look at the other 5 and look at how you are not harming the other 5, and also how do you comply with the minimum safeguards. Another question which could be interesting for the financial market is which are the financial products that are actually involved in this? Is it everything? By the way, the pensions are also included here. But the financial products which are marketed into or manufactured in the European Union, including pension products, will be required to refer to the taxonomy. So this means that for each relevant product, the financial market will need to state how and to what extent they have used the taxonomy, to what environmental objectives the investments contribute, and what is the proportion of underlying investments that are taxonomy aligned. Very important things. By the way, these disclosures against the taxonomy forms part of a broader sustainability related disclosure, which is not only related to the taxonomy. This is called the SFDR, the Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation. And this basically, the requirements here include pre-contractual, website, and periodic reporting obligations. And there are specific information that these companies need to disclose with this. Something that I really want to, of course, there are lots of details and technicalities around this, but I do not want to bore you with this. As I was saying before, I will also highly recommend to have a look at this final report that the technical experts group have produced. It's really easier to understand and to transform this into real practice, best practice, and how to act on this. So there are three things basically that I want to mention lastly that the companies need to report on, the financial market specifically, which are called Article 9, 8, and 7, by the way, from the regulations. But let's see it also in a bit of colors, yeah? So the Article 9, it refers to the thing that is most environmental friendly, yeah? So the dark green, let's call it. So this is about financial products which have sustainable investment as their main objective. And this is really sustainable investment. Article 8, let's see it as light green. It's about financial products that promote environmental or social characteristics of the investment, either alone or in combination with other characteristics. And Article 7, which can be gray, maybe, it's all the other financial products which most probably are not environmental sustainable investments. So as I was saying, a lot of technicalities in this area for sure, but there is also, by the way, there is also a platform for sustainable finance, which is also sustained by the European Commission, which helps companies and financial markets to understand how to put this in practice, how to implement it, what are the methodology, what are the tools that they can use. There are lots of documents which are useful, which even for me, which I'm not an expert in the industry and working with this every day, is not that difficult to understand. So I was expecting to find it more difficult, but actually I think it's digestible up to a certain point, definitely.
Yeah, and if we step back for a second and understand why all this is happening, look, governments get together in Paris, they sign an agreement to foster a green economy. We all know what is economy, but we not all know what is green. And green needs to be defined, and defined with a lot of precision. Green means greenhouse gas emissions, green means biodiversity, green means how we use water, how we produce waste, how we take care of the land, the way we treat energy performance, deforestation. So it's a lot of things, and anyone can understand it in a different manner. And if we let companies decide how green they are themselves without a standard, it will not fly. Okay. So that's why I think they, with a tremendous effort and throughout a number of years, they put together all these taxonomies, all these regulations. Now, there, as we mentioned, there are now the first dates. There are important milestones. March this month is one of the milestones where they can, the financial institutions, the financial actors, the financial market participants, as they are called, they can start identifying what it's called the principal adverse impact of any investment. So what we want to analyze if a bank makes an investment is which is the main risks that that investment represents for the planet, and vice versa. What can happen in sustainability-wise that can impact that investment? So they can start doing those principal adverse impacts reports this month, and they have to finalize by June. Okay, So there are important milestones now. The regulations that were many years away are now just in front of us. And some of our customers, when we meet our customers, that they are kind of lost. There's a lot of information here. Let me just, with a couple of images, help you understand this. Look, the same way we have rating agencies, we have now ESG agencies, ESG rating agencies. So it's not enough with that financial reporting. We need to do sustainability reporting. But unfortunately, those agencies are not bringing us the full picture. There's a lot of data that I will have to harvest myself as a company or as a financial institution. And that's a critical point here. We have sustainable performance, and now we have to think about performing sustainability. So both dimensions. There are some companies that just see all these reporting needs as a threat, as a burden, as something that they have to do because they are mandated. And there are some other companies that see this as an opportunity. And in the next image, we can understand what is the difference between one company and the other. Imagine that you take the decision of just relying on the ESG rating agencies. So I just go and buy information. Of course, you don't have any granularity. It's a black box where you have to trust what is there, and you don't have any kind of secret sauce. Imagine for a minute that you're a bank. You're not just putting your knowledge into understanding how climate risk can affect, for example, companies in different industries or in different regions, because of course, climate threats are very different depending if you are in one part of the planet or the other one. So all that secret sauce, all your experience is not reflected there. However, if you start adding more data sources, ESG rating agencies, one source, Stamatia was mentioning about the tool that the European is going to launch also to provide this taxonomy, but also internal data. The minute you start combining all that data and creating richness is when you can really strengthen both views, the sustainability view and the financial view. And this is where magic happens. If we go to the next image, we're gonna take a look at a small video that is going to walk you through how to do that. And this is the beautiful thing that I think SAP is bringing to the equation, is how to deal with all this complexity, gather all this data. And if we play the play button, we will see where all that data is coming from, all those data sources. Because in this world of sustainability and finance combined, you need to create lots of scenarios. You need to do projections. You need to take a look at information from both angles, the finance and the sustainability, because the sustainability will bring insights that will help you in the finance side and vice versa. And all those needs of how to handle information and how to view information from different angles is what makes very needed, very necessary to have a tool to orchestrate, a solution to orchestrate all this complexity. If you're looking at the image now, you can see what are the data sources. Okay, once you have the data, the sustainability data, where do you bring that data from? What do you do with that data? Stamatia was also referring to different standards. What if you apply the GRI standards? What if you apply other standards? How would be the final results? And not only that, how do you put that into a final report? Who needs to approve that report? This has to follow the 4I principle, and it has to be something that you can audit, something that you can prove. Very important when Adriana was talking about the dark green, the light green, and the gray investments. You have to demonstrate, you have to prove, you have to be able to audit all those trails. And explain to the market and to all the stakeholders how you have done your investment decisions. I'm going to stop here. There's so much more to say, but I just want to leave one message with the audience here. It is a complex world, but it is very simple if you take it one step at a time. Even the way you have to report, the reports themselves, everything is scripted already. So you just have to concentrate in adding your knowledge to these kind of solutions to really make it usable.
That sounds great, everybody. So I guess that we had a big tour, right? All the way from regulation and standards to a very practical way for you to put together your reporting and taking action on that. One final question that I have for all of you is about the why. Is regulation the only reason why organizations should do this? I really like the framework that Adriana was presenting to all of us, right? Which is about do no significant harm. What does that even mean in the first place? Is it the case that the organizations are doing harm and all this environmental degradation is coming like on purpose just to fulfill shareholder value creation? So, guys, what is actually at stakes here when it comes to sustainable finance?
Well, a lot of it is at stake. Stamatia mentioned the trillions of investments that the European Union is ready to do if it's green. And this is because we all understand that we need to push for a better future, but we need to safeguard that it's a better future. That not that it's greenwashing, not is that it's only about compliance. You know, Pedro, that we establish like three steps when we talk to our customers: compliance, efficiency, and innovation. You do this because you want to continue operating, that's compliance. You do this because you want to improve, that's efficiency. You do this because you want to really get to your sustainable advantage, get to new customers, improve the world you're looking for, and improve also your bottom line. That's innovation. And those are the three components that we have to aggregate here. I don't know what's your view, Stamatia and Adriana, on this.
Of course, I agree, Carlos, in what you said, and I think that the companies and the first will not have other option than taking actions about the climate change. There will not be other way. The climate change is the environment. We see all these events that are going on here that is impacting the financial sector and all the other sectors. So this is the only way in the future.
Some people say that ESG ratings will be as important as credit ratings today. I think that the truth is in the middle. It's in the combination of both. We cannot think about a good credit rating if that company, for example, is a mining company and has exhausted the water resources to do mining. And things like that. ESG ratings are integral part of the operation of the company. It cannot be otherwise.
Absolutely.
We have definitely seen that climate change impacts directly the banking and the insurance industries through natural disasters. I mean, they think about the insurance. They need to pay more for covering all the disasters, for example. That's a very easy to understand example. But also think about Europe. Let's look it also from a different angle, because I totally agree with it. But let's look it also from a different angle. So Europe has this ambitious vision of becoming the first carbon neutral continent in the world, which is great. By the way, I'm happy that I live in Europe. But also, in order to do that, we need lots of investments. Like Stamatia was saying, 1 trillion of euros, or whatever USD dollars it is, it's enormous. So governments and the European Commission cannot take it all. They just cannot take it all. So this means that we need private investments as well. So this means that the financial markets are the main leader here to make that happen. And of course, companies also contribute by providing those projects that are actually environmentally sustainable.
Yeah, and we see when we meet our customers, we see a lot of they are under stress. Okay, they They have to gather information to do this kind of reports that Pedro showed at the beginning, with scope 1, 2, and 3, gather information about the emissions that they are producing on one side. On the other side, now they have to present a lot of information on this sustainable finance disclosure regulation, the non-financial information, all these regulations. They have to gather information. We have to deal with data. We have to create reports. We have to do all that kind of thing. And they feel a huge burden. And as I said, if we give meaning to what we are doing, it has perfect sense. We cannot just forget about why we're doing all this and gathering numbers like, crazy all around. We are doing this because we need to sustain the planet. And this cannot be done by governments alone. This cannot be done by governments and organizations and enterprises. This has to be done together with citizens. Our behavior has to drive companies to drive the right thing.
Absolutely. One thing that I believe it's also helping us to understand the why is a recent report that came from the management consulting Roland Berger, and I have it here with me. And we can have one of our lives just to deep dive in this concept of future thinking. So they went to 2050 and they looked into 4 scenarios that would have an impact. And I find this very interesting how they are putting together the analysis here. And as you can see, one of the scenarios is planned a new world, so where we are kind of doing things to achieve that goal. The second one is a race for sustainability. The third one would be minimum viable master plan. And the fourth scenario is everyone for themselves. And honestly, what I understood from this report is that every scenario is kind of showing how bad things could be. Right. And I believe that every industry that we are covering here, every organization that is represented watching this, they would have to think about the future scenario of the organization and the impact of climate change and everything that is related to sustainability, how that would change the entire ecosystem and the way they do business. So future thinking is at the core center stage of the why all those regulations and the real need to act now is in place.
Absolutely. And future thinking is part of the requirements that the European Union is imposing in anyone that wants to invest. So don't tell me only which are the threats now. Go into the future and think how sustainability can impact this investment. Absolutely.
Wonderful. All right, everyone. So I think it was a great ride. I love the episode of today. We've been talking to something that is fundamental to the change, which is finance. We live in a capitalism at the end of the day, even though we need to reimagine capitalism because the world is on fire. But I think we are doing a good job here to create a bit of awareness and highlight some of the solutions for this climate issue. And I really appreciate that you're putting a lot of effort to bring the best of your knowledge every week here for our audience. And I want to know what's coming next week. I'm really excited about, the way this is going. We're coming close to our 10th episode. So what's going to be the next one for all of you?
So we have talked a little bit about our responsibilities as citizens, because we are part of companies, we are their customers, and we are part of governments, we are their voters. But what can we do as citizens to solve climate change? We have something that is called a 5-top strategy. And if Samadia, Adriana, and you, Pedro, agree, that I would love to cover that in the next call, the 5-top strategy.
Absolutely. I think it's a very interesting framework, and I think how challenging it is for individuals, and I think for organizations too. So yeah, I'm looking forward, and you can wait for tough questions there.
I'm sure.
It is a different topic and interesting topic, so I think that nobody would have heard something like that before. So
wonderful.
Let's go for it.
Let's go for it. All right. So before we close this session today, I really want to make sure you understood that there is a very important event coming up in April. This is the Global SAP Sustainability Summit, and we would love you to be part of it. The discussion we are having here will be divided into 2 days, and we're going to address circular economy, climate action with the top experts in the world and also within SAP. And I'm going to leave you today with this invitation so you can be part of it. And I see you next week.